Okay, so tying this fly is pretty simple, man. You're gonna need yourself number 6 hooks. I recommend these. I've tested them. I think they'll perform, and they're much more inexpensive than most of the fancy foreign sounding name brands. You need some thread. I like blue because I think this fly is a crab imitation and they have lots of blue. A little bit of orange. We're gonna put it for an egg sac. Of course, yarn. Tonight we're gonna use tan and brown, but you could use a bunch of different colors. I've used blue, I've used pink, I've used sandy color, some rubber legs. I get mine, some of them anyway, from the Bass Pro Shops. These silicone skirts that I don't know what they use them for, but I like the bars on them. Some kind of Grizzly Hackle. It doesn't have to be Grizzly, but I like this kind of, this one. You could be brown, it could be whatever. And some small, really tiny Bead-chain eyes. We're gonna get into using it. So yeah, a little bit about this. Well, before this, let me show you some of the tools that I use. I do like to use a whip finish tool, but you don't have to. You can use your fingers. And this is my favorite scissors. You can get it in a pack for $3 with this stuff here. I love it because you can hold it. It's spring loaded. I can hold it in my hand while I hold everything else. $3 from Hobby Lobby. So let's start with your hook. Always debarbed. I'm gonna get some thread on there. So yeah, my buddy Ed Taylor, God rest his soul, developed this fly. Unfortunately, Ed passed about a year ago, maybe a little less than a year ago now, and from complications due to some health issues that he had, not thankfully the coronavirus. First thing we're gonna do is we're gonna put in this stuff here. But yeah, so he was a long-time guide, fished a lot. I mean, you know, over 200 days a year, a lot of the years. And he got tired of tying flies, even though, you know, when you start off, you love tying flies. Well, he got tired of it after a while because, frankly, he was just tired of people breaking off the fish all the time, which is fine, part of the job. That part he didn't mind. What he minded was, when I tie this in, by the way, I like to make it a little V shape. So I take a wrap or two around it, double it back over, tie it in like that, so you can see that it makes a V shape there, like so. So he came up with this fly. His goal, he went home one night and he was like, you know what? I'm gonna come up with a fly that is basically just a couple of materials, like 2 materials and a hook. And so he just basically tied a bunch of yarn onto a hook shank and went fishing with it. I remember the first time I saw it, I totally made fun of him because I was like, dude, did you lose it? Like, is everything okay, buddy? Like, you just look like you just strapped some yarn on a hook. He's like, man, I'm telling you, this thing is killing them. So he gave me one. It was bright yellow with chartreuse thread. You know, none of the things you would think of belong on a fly. And well, you notice also, I was pointing this out, you notice I'm tying this on the underneath side of the shank. Well, that is so that it helped the fly ride hook point up. It's shallow water, and down here that means grass, lots of grass. I use this successfully in other places where bonefish tail over grass. I remember fishing in Hackle Island in the Bahamas, and on some really popular flat that you can wade, a lot of grass though. And the guide was like, no man, you got to use a white crazy Charlie, which worked, but it kept hanging up in the grass because I didn't have a Weedguard on a white crazy Charlie. But I had some of these, and after I went off on my own, and the guide was working with another client, I was killing them on this Shaggedelic in no inches of water. Anyway, so my buddy Ed gives me this fly, and I'm like, all right, cool, I'm gonna try it out. I was on this flat the next, and he was hardcore, but he was like, dude, I'm telling you, this fly works. I'm not gonna trim everything yet. We're gonna give it a second, and I'm gonna tie in the eyes now. So I got this fly, put the fly on with my clients, threw it, and I could not believe it. I was fishing in this really tough area, and the fish ran like 10 feet to eat this fly. It was unbelievable. when I tie in my eyes, I make a couple of wraps, right? You see how they're at an angle, at a diagonal? Then what I do is, it's kind of hard to see, but I'll push them back the other way and wrap from the other direction so that it will make the eyes now perpendicular to the hook shank again. So there we go. There's hook perpendicular to the hook shank again. Now is where I'm going to trim them, trim everything. So turn this sucker here a little bit. And I'll leave it really a lot bigger than you think. I want to make sure they're even. That's always where it gets me, and then it ends up, the whole thing ends up getting smaller and smaller and smaller. Anyway, so where was I? Oh yeah, I was fishing with some clients one day, and I had Ed's fly in my bag, and I was like, you know, I gotta just try it. Ed was bragging about this fly. Let's try it. I threw this fly on, man. Fish rushed like 10 feet and ate this thing. I could not believe it. I was like, but then I was kind of in shock. But then it reminded me of an old buddy of mine. I don't remember his. No, I do remember his name. Christian Denard. We used to call him Skinny. He had a little business for a while called Skinny Dreams. He's a hell of an angler, man. And he, I remember him fishing in this one area where I first started to learn to fly fish. And this dude was throwing basically just yarn tied sideways on a hook that he was calling a quan. It was by no stretch of the imagination a quan. I've seen quans. They're really nice flies and elegant. This was the opposite of that. This was just literally yarn tied on a hook sideways, and it made a square. I mean, it looked like SpongeBob. He should have tied that fly and called it SpongeBob. So here we are now. We are ready to put on the Weedguard. So I always trim the body before I put in the hackle. The hackle is just to help it land a little quieter, you know. So I get my stiff monofilament here, and I'm going to pinch the end of it like so to give myself, squeeze it pretty hard. That gives myself a little flat area to tie into. You can glue it down and whatever if you want. We don't need to. Anyway, I remember watching him one day, these schools of tail and bonefish coming through. I couldn't get nothing to bite. My dad couldn't get nothing to bite. My buddy from the States couldn't get nothing to bite. When I trim this a little bit longer than where the hook point is going to be, but that's not good enough. It'll still lay down too flat, so you got to raise it up. I just put my thumb behind it. Wrap, lock, wrap, lock, wrap, lock, wrap, lock. I just barely left enough. I just barely left enough space on this head of this hook by the eye to make a head. Gotta be careful about that. Cool. Once I get that wrap a little bit to make sure my head is good, you see I'm gonna spin this bobbin. It unwraps the thread. You can use your fingers or whatever. I can do that, it's no problem. I like the whip finish tool. I think it gives me more control. But once you practice this a little bit, you get pretty good at doing it by hand too. Make sure you hold the thread when you pull it through. If you're nervous about it, you can give it a couple of wraps. But anyway, I watched Skinny catch bonefish there that day. I could not believe how well he did with that. And I'll probably try to see if I can add some pictures to this video of the last time that I went fishing with this fly. 6 inches of water, flat calm day, tail and bonefish. Fish monstered it in inches of water. So there we go, man. That is what I call the Shaggedelic. What I think Skinny should have called a SpongeBob, although I don't know if SpongeBob had been invented yet. And what Ed used to call a carpet sample. God bless him. This is what the bonefish sees coming toward them. Wide, or going away from them, a wide flat pattern. It semi-suspends in the water. A lot of rubber leg action. Lands really light. Killer bonefish fly.